In this tutorial, we're going to continue working on Edit Poly, and I'm going to introduce you to a number of different tools. And we're going to do a little bit of material work, and we're going to make a Pokeball. So I'm going to start off here. I'm going to go to Sphere. I'm going to click on Keyboard Entry, and down under Radius, I'm going to enter 100. I want to make sure Perspective is active, so make sure you right-click to make that active. Let's go back here, Sphere, Radius 100, and hit Create. Just going to hit Z to zoom out. Let's right-click to get out of Sphere Creation mode. And here under Default Shading, I'm going to turn on Edged Faces. All right, so let's right-click, Convert to Edit Poly. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to come over here, and in the front, I'm holding the middle mouse button to kind of zoom down a little bit. I'm just going to region select, and that's clicking in negative space and dragging. If I get too much stuff, I'm just going to hold Alt and region select from above, because I really just want to have this one strip of polygons right here. So I'm going to come over here. Let's expand this so you can see which sub-object I'm in. I'm going to click Extrude. I'm going to hit the settings next to it and just do negative. Oops. Negative 10 and hit OK. The little check mark is OK. All right, so I got my first little entry point here. Let's go ahead, I'm going to go into Edge, and here in the top view now, I'm going to double click and hold Control and double click. Alternatively, I could click on one edge on either side and then come over to Selection and click Loop. All right, see how that grabs every edge that is in a 4-point intersection. And so we had to grab one on either sides because the center is more than 4 points. So let's zoom in here in the front. I'm going to scroll a little bit with my mouse, middle mouse wheel. All right, so you can see here there's red lines coming down. We don't want those. We really only want these edges on the side. So I'm going to hold Alt and deselect all these areas. And really all I want is just this line here on the left and here on the right. That's what we're going to be working with, because we're going to come over here and we want to make another groove that we can extrude in, but we're going to click on Chamfer, and we're going to set our chamfer to 10. Let's zoom in. Yeah. Is that about right? It's probably too much. Let's actually set it to like 8. 8 looks good to me. I'm going to click OK. All right. Now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be extruding in a little bit here. So, uh-oh, look what I did. When I chamfered, it made a triangle, and that's, I'm realizing the error of my ways. So let's undo a couple steps here. I'm going to add 1, 2 points there, and let's orbit around. And I'm going to do 1, 2 points there. And now when I chamfer, I'm going to hit OK. Let's orbit around and see what we got going on here. All right. I'm going to go ahead and in Polygon come in and just start deleting some of these, some of these faces. Let's go here to Display, turn on Backface Cull, come back over, Polygon, delete, delete, click delete, click delete, click delete, delete. Just getting rid of all sorts of stuff, aren't I? All right. Let's do the same thing over on the other side. Delete, 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 delete. I'm using the delete button on my keyboard, and that's allowing me to delete those things. Just make sure I'm doing the same thing on both sides. All right, let's go to Vertex. I'm just gonna, for fun, just region select everything. I'm at 602 hertz. What happens if I hit weld? Okay, cool. I was making sure I didn't have any extra edges in there. All right, and you know what? I'm going to go back into Polygon. I'm going to delete those two faces right there. Yeah, I like that. Okay. Come back over. I'm going to delete these two. All right, so now we come here in Edge. I'm going to double click on this guy, and look, he goes all the way around. All right, look, it made a little bit of a mess at the bottom. not going to worry about that. Double click on that edge, it goes all the way around. Now, I'm going to hold Control on my keyboard and click on Polygon. And what that's going to do is whatever I have selected currently is going to get selected in that mode. So any polygon that's part of these edge selections is now going to be selected. See that? It's pretty cool. We're going to go ahead and we're going to extrude again, but now we're going to change this to, or we're going to keep it at -10, but we're going to change it from height to local normal. See how instead of it all going straight up, now they all come in. It's just pretty nice, like that. All right, so let's now, in Polygon, I'm going to click on, oops, I'll click on one of these faces, orbit around. I just want to come in here and delete those faces there. I'm taking a look at what I got here. Let's delete this, delete this, delete this, and delete this. And I'm going to go into Edge and click on this edge here, and I'm going to use, so up here, there's some tools that are called the modeling tools, right? And if you're in certain sub-objects, you can get access to some. Like I want loops. So I'm going to click on this edge here and do loops, remove loop. And that's going to get rid of both edges and vertex points, which is pretty perfect. That's exactly what we want. So let's start rebuilding some of the stuff we're missing. Again, I got to be in edge for this. I'm going to do bridge. Bridge across here. Oops. That's weird. I just want this guy, so I'm just going to bridge here, bridge. And then I'm going to click on an edge and use orbit, and it's going to orbit around my selection. And now when I go into bridge, I can draw out where I want edges to be. And let's orbit around some more, because I want to be able to see kind of this center area. Oops. Tried zooming in, didn't really work out very well for me. There we go. So what do we got going on here? Let's do another bridge. Just like that. And before I do that, I'm actually going to do a bridge right here. I'm going to select one edge, and I'm going to hit ring, and now up here in this modeling, I'm going to say flow connect. What that did was it added a slight angle there at the bottom, probably not quite as much as we want. Let's zoom in here from above. I'm going to hold Control and click on vertex over on the side, and now we're going to move. I'm just going to move these over so that they kind of line up with this outer edge vert. Now hold Alt and deselect and then move the bottom one over. There we go. I'm going to go into edge, and in edge I'm going to turn on target weld. I'm just going to target weld this edge over. There we go. Now let's see what we got here. Perfect. Okay. So I'm just going to use bridge. Hold on a second. There we go. Just want to be able to see better. We're bridge from here to there, and from here to there, and then I can come in border. Oops, turn off my bridge. If I can come in border, I can hit cap. I'll just cap that off. There we go. Now, I have another side of my model to work on to make that change. But, oh, sorry, I maximized my viewport. You can see the shortcut's Alt W. Let's orbit around. What does my little view cube say? Does it say front? It does. Perfect. All right. So I did all this work. All this work is over in what we call positive X, right? So if I come up here, I'm going to click on Editable Poly. There's a modifier called Symmetry. I've added it here in my modifier set. So one of the ones I had you set it up. I'm going to go ahead and put a symmetry on here. Now, symmetry works based off of the axes that it has listed. And those axes are the one in your corner. They're also the one on your model, right? So currently you can see that it is taking what is on the top and putting it in symmetry down to the bottom. Now we can flip that so the mess that's on the bottom is now on the top, which we don't want. So let's just go ahead and leave it at regular Z. So what we have at the bottom, I'm sorry, at the bottom is now on the top. But then also now we can actually add to that. We want what's over here on X over on the side. So this is a recent addition and change. A lot of my older tutorials were pre this functionality, and it's actually really nice that you can actually stack symmetry controls inside of there. I think that's pretty cool functionality. So I think that's looking pretty good. I like what I have, so I'm going to right click and say collapse to, and then say yes. All right. Now, I have that change baked in, and I can keep working. Let's go in, and I'm going to double click on this edge here. And really what I want to do is chamfer all my edges all around. So I'm just going to hold Control and just start to click on all these upper important edges that are visually here. There we go. I want all these because what I'm going to do is, in order to make this just look a little bit nicer, I'm going to chamfer all of them. Let's chamfer them. Let's enter a value of like 1. No, let's say 2.5. I'm going to reduce the amount. I'm just going to go back to 0. There we go. So 2.5 is kind of rough. Let's say 1.5 and say okay. So there we go. Now it's kind of smoothing out the edges. You can see sometimes if you try to chamfer at a corner, sometimes it does ugly things. When it does that, I go to vertex mode and go to target weld, and I just say, oh, why on earth did you ever do that? That is just real ugly stuff, and now we made it all better. Although I might select these 2 vertex points, and under Edit Vertices, say Connect. So we're kind of defining those edges. Let's all right, where is that? That's over here? Perfect. Let's go, and I'm going to make sure I'm at the top level here. I'm going to put another symmetry on. I'm going to turn off Z, but turn on X. Oh, perfect. It's going over to the other side. And if ever you go to put a symmetry on and it's not showing up the stuff you want to keep, which is like where I clean that up, if that doesn't stay, try clicking the flip. Maybe it's just on the opposite side that's being mirrored. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn on Z as well. So everything I done on the top is being flipped down to the bottom. And let's right click, convert to poly. I'm going to go into Element and click on my model. And I'm going to find Polygon smoothing groups and just say Auto Smooth. So there we go. We have us a nice looking Pokeball there. All right. It's not so bad. It's kind of cool looking. Now, if we wanted to, we could go through and we can actually get multiple materials assigned to one object. So let me show you how to do that. I'm going to do Rendering, Material Editor, Slate Material Editor. So because we did go in and set up a max start scene, when you go into Render Setup, you'll see we're set to Scanline Render. So we get access to some different materials. Here under General, I'm going to drag over a multi-sub-object. And then I want to find this scanline rollout, and I want to find standard legacy. If you'll notice, I expanded it, and I collapsed it, and then expanded it. You may need to do that to see it. All right. So you want to bring over a standard legacy material. I'm just going to hit the little minus sign to minimize that. And then let's drag over 2 more. And I'm just going to assign them to 1, and that's I'm just clicking on the circle and holding my left mouse button, and I can then connect that 1, 2, 3. I'm going to click on this material. It's every time you click on one, its parameters show up on the right. I'm just going to click set number to 3 and say OK. And then I'm going to go over here to create because I want to make sure I'm on the very top level. I'm not in the sub object. I'm going to right click on the multi-sub object material and say assign a material. When I do that, you'll notice you get little hash marks in the corners. I can also come over here and on the side where there's little squares, if I click on those, you'll see that gives me the ability to change the color. Now, if I wanted to change more than that, say I wanted to make something shiny, I could click on it here and I could affect its specular values. If I just click on the little arrows and drag, I can make something very glossy. Or I can make it very flat. You can kind of see it there. All right, so let's take a look. If I click on this guy, 1, 2, and 3. So let's now come over here. The material is assigned to everybody. So now I'm going to come in and I'm going to go into first element and just kind of click on the model and assign everything to one ID. That'll be ID 2, or I'm sorry, ID 1. You see as I orbit around now, it's got that spec dot. I could go in there. If I click on this, I can actually really over crank that to make it like really look plastic. All right. Let's click on the main material, the parent material again. All right, so let's go through. Let's start getting different materials on here. So there's a couple different ways. I'm actually going to make sure edge faces is turned on. If I go into, I want to go into edge here. I'm going to double click on this edge. And I'm going to hold Control and double click on this edge. And now when I hold Control and click on Polygon, what I did was I went and I selected all those polygons going around. I'm going to move over to Select because I don't want to actually accidentally be clicking on polygons and moving it, which you can do if you're doing work like this and select and move. So I just want Select Object. I'm going to hold Control and click on this big triangle. Same over on the other side. Oops. Let's go out to, oops. I'm going to restore my viewport and then undo to get my selection back. Now I'm going to hold Alt and deselect because I don't want those edges on the top. And I'm going to want these to be my black colors, so I'm going to do 3. There we go. And then I could do a similar thing down here at the bottom where I double click. Or actually, I could select an edge and just hit ring and then hold Control and grab the polygons. There we go. Now you look, you see that it didn't quite keep going through and selecting them. I'm going to go ahead and assign these guys ID3. Basically what's happening here is something that occasionally happens with Symmetry. Symmetry will occasionally get little errors. If things don't quite line up perfectly, Symmetry is not a fan. So let's come in here in Polygon. I'm just going to region select in the middle. And I'm going to hold Alt and I'm going to deselect this bottom row just barely and the top row just barely. You see how it just has a couple things selected? I'm just going to hit Delete on my keyboard and now go into Vertex and region select all these vertex points, and I'm going to make them planar along the Z-axis. There we go, kind of lines them up. I'm going to hit Weld, and then this little point right here, I'm going to actually come over to Edit Vertices and hit Remove to remove him. And let's orbit around to the other side, and look, yep, there's one there too. So I'm going to go to Edit Vertices and click Remove. Now let's go into Edge, click on this edge, hit Ring, and then hold Control and click on Polygon to select it. There we go. And we can assign all of these ID 3. All right, we're looking pretty good. You know what we could do here? Go into Edge. I need to make sure I'm just on Select so I'm not accidentally scaling things. All right, select on one, Control, Polygon, 3, same thing. Select an edge, hold, ring, hold Control on Polygon, 3. All right, there we go. Oh, missed the other side. Go to edge, ring, Control Polygon, and 3. So there you go. So in some ways to make it easier, of course you could manually go through and just be clicking on things for days. That's not what anybody wants to do though. So let's come in here. I'm gonna, in Polygon, I'm just gonna grab all these at the top, assign them ID2, and then I'm gonna select that one point on the top and then hold Control and grab Polygon, and I'm just gonna change this to 1. All right, so now I have this sort of Pokeball type shape. I know it's not totally accurate. If I turn that off, you can see it. If you want to get it fixed on the other side, you just put symmetry on it. Make sure it's set to Z, and there you go. So make sure you save this and turn it in. Notes on what to save it as name-wise are up on Google Classroom.